would be offering a complex portfolio. That means we need to have the supply chain which can support that complex portfolio. Without that, we cannot do it. Right? Of course, I would like to actually give completely customized service to each and every one. Then I'll get the maximum amount of revenue, but it is not feasible, right? So you need to have a robust supply chain which can support that. All right. Technology, of course, it's a tech company. At the end of the day, the research which happens in our different research labs, they are basically building the product. But then once they build the product, once they build the design, well and good. But then we need to have the supply chain to support that. Otherwise, we will not be able to sell it. Are we clear with that? So that is one of the things which I want to highlight on. Then of course, we had one size fits all, which is essentially a derivative of the first one. One size fits all, non-resilient supply chain. But now we have we call it a quad value chain. So we have aligned, adaptable, agile, and accountable value chain now. All right. Now, the third point which we had in 2018 was that we had a low service level and higher inventory. Both are counterproductive. So what does that mean? If we have low service level and higher inventory, generally speaking, if you have higher inventory, so that means you have high service level, right? Just think about that normal distribution problem. You remember, all of you have that normal distribution problem, right? So let's say there is a company who is selling, I don't know, water bottles, right? And your demand follows a normal distribution with mean 100 and standard deviation 30. How much inventory he should carry, he or she should carry to ensure that he would be able to support 95% of the demand, demand 95% of the time. So more you have, the more service level you would have, right? So if I am saying that we had low service level and high inventory, what does that mean? Interactive. Of course, you can call it whatever you want, but I want more precise answer. What does it mean? If a company has high inventory as well as low service level, generally they are counterproductive, right? If you have high inventory, you should have high service level.
So more about low customization and mass production of the same.
Low customization means you would have even lower inventory, right? Because less customization.
Yes, sir. Higher costs of management.
What it means is that we do not have the right kind of inventory. I am holding inventory, but wrong kind of inventory which cannot support the demand. If we had right kind of inventory, then in that case that would actually lead to high service level. If we have higher amount of inventory, say one product, let's say I am taking this water bottle. This water bottle consists of n number of things, right? The cap, just for the sake, stick with me so far. Let's say this water bottle consists of three things. One is cap, one is the bottle, and one is water, right? Now let us say you maintain 4 units of cap, 1 unit of bottle water, and 2 units of bottle. How many units you can support?
1 unit.
Although you are maintaining a whole lot of inventory, but you will not be able to support. You cannot convert that inventory to service level. If you have 3 units of cap, 3 units of bottle, and 3 units of water, then in that case you will be able to support 3 units of demand, right? So that is one of the problems. It's very simple now, but then of course when you are talking about a complex supply chain, it's much more complicated than that. But the moral of the story was that we did not have right kind of inventory stored at right point of time in the right position. Yeah.
Technology obsolescence could be the another reason. Technology is
Yes,
not
yes.
so fast.
See, one of the things, underlying principle in semiconductor, if you are looking from forecasting perspective, then probably this is the worst industry to work in. Even the best of the best companies with the best of the best capabilities of forecasting, they cannot go beyond 60% accuracy. It's that bad. It is what it is. But then that is inherent nature of the industry. We cannot do anything about it. Now, given that inherent nature, what are we doing? That is what we need to focus on. But yes, technology obsolescence is one of the very important things. So, I mean, I'll just give you, everybody, you can understand what his point is, right? So, I'll just extend to it one of the problems with that, the technology obsolescence. So let us say we are introducing a new product. We call it NPI. Everybody knows about NPI, right? So when we are saying we are introducing a new product, then so let us say we are introducing a new product, then in that case, the value of that product is huge, right? Because it is an introduction, right? So if we miss the market, then probably we would miss the entire lifetime value, right? Customer lifetime value. For example, let's say we are bringing a new product to the market. Let's say our competitor is Intel, right? So if we miss a particular chance at NPI stage, then in that case it's highly likely that Intel will take it, and the entire business which could have come from that particular thing will lose out. So it's very important for us, right? However, there is a chance that that product could be a failure. Then in that case, how much inventory should I keep? And in fact, since it is a new product, so that means the inventory itself or the production itself is at an nascent stage. It's a ongoing updating stage. So that means today whatever BOM bill of material you have, that is not stabilized yet, right? So that means I buy according to the BOM and say that okay, I want to service, let's say 99% service level. We want to have a high service level because it's a new product. So we decide that 99% service level will maintain, and according to that we call we store a whole lot of inventory. But then tomorrow the BOM is not stable yet. Tomorrow the BOM changes. Then what do I do with that extra inventory? And that's a real problem that we are facing. So that is something related to technology change as well. Same thing happens. The moment technology changes, whatever inventory we have, we cannot do anything about it. We can, but then it's a lot of work, right? Are we clear? And we'll talk about tracking those as well. And then finally, and this is mindset change. Probably you would connect to the previous presentation you had. So it's a mindset change. When we joined in 2018, supply chain was considered as a cost center, whereas now supply chain is considered as a competitive advantage. And this is something which you probably would relate to very easily. And whenever I am actually giving the presentation to any of the academic institution, I say the same thing. Generally speaking, industry is probably a little bit behind compared to academia. It's not the other way around. So whatever concept you have, and there's a reason behind it. Whatever concept you have today, let's say you are developing a concept, right? Conceptual paper you are writing. So you will see that probably, and if it is indeed good, that probably would be implemented, let's say, 10 years down the line. So there is a gap between that. For example, Howley matrix. Many of you are aware about, right? 2002. It came in 2002. There are companies who are still implementing it, or started implementing it. So this is 2024, right? So 22 years later. So it is relevant. And then the same list of formula you have, that Harris formula, right? 1970. People are still implementing it. So the companies take a little bit time to catch up. So that means this focus on supply chain came into academia in early 2000s. So people are still trying to catch up. So till now, people were more focusing on improving their efficiency, right? Building better product. But then, especially in the high-tech industry, focusing on supply chain, that is not very common. So Micron is one of the pioneers who actually started focusing on supply chain, using supply chain as a competitive advantage. And this kind of competitive advantage is actually, you can actually leverage this for a long period of time. Technology advancement. So if you build a new technology, it's very, very copyable, right? So today you are building a technology, yes, absolutely brilliant, but then you can milk it for, let's say, 2 years, not more than that. But if you have a supply chain advantage, you can milk it for 10 years, I think. All right. So Micron has started looking at supply chain as a competitive advantage. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
What is accountable value chain?
I'll be talking talking about quad evaluation in detail. Okay, any other question? Sorry, I'm just. Yeah.
One quick question. You were explaining about the problems that you had high inventory and low surveys. What was exactly your problem? Was it the technology or the impact and bomb? Because early 2000s is early 2000 or late 2000, that is where just-in-time has been very.
No, it is 2018. We are talking about 2018 firstly. And the other thing is that it was a combination of all this. However, just-in-time does not work in high-tech industry. So if you look at the Howley matrix value chain or Howley matrix supply chain construct, so there we have demand uncertainty, we have supply uncertainty, right? Now, if you have low demand uncertainty, low supply uncertainty, then you will focus on making your supply chain as what you call it as efficient as possible. So just like Walmart does. The problem with high tech is that it is uncertain in both supply and demand. So if just in time, you need just in time works when you have enough amount of cushion, enough amount of lead time. So today you are asking that okay, I need a Rolls Royce car. I can start building Rolls Royce car and you will be willing to wait for 2 months. But in memory industry, if I say that I'll take 2 months to supply you the product, they will say that okay, I'll go to somebody else. So it's challenging. So we need to build a balance. It's kind of like a combination of push and pull. So we need to find out what is the sweet spot where we should actually keep it on, and it cannot be same for everyone. And we would be talking about that as well. So
Just a follow-up question, but just make sure I understand that. So in general, theoretically, the MPS scheduling and forecasting, does it really happen?
yes, it does, and we do it. But then we cannot have one size fits all. So we have different types of products. We need to, for each of the products, we have to segregate and we have to apply accordingly.
So MPS is this happen?
Yes, we use MRP. And one of the things about Micron is that whatever you learn in textbook, we apply that on. It's not that we do judgmental, and that's why we come in. So advanced analytics is very important in Micron. The reason behind that being that we do not take call on the basis of hunch. Everything has to be supported by data. So whatever you have learned in operations, see your operations management textbook, those are there just there for a reason, right? So it is theoretically robust. So that means if you can apply it correctly, you can apply it, right? People who may not choose to apply it because of certain reason, but if you can, then it is the best possible solution. And Micron does operations by textbook. So you will see that we actually use MRP. MRP2. MRP1 is so MRP1 is also there, right? So when you are building MPS master production schedule, then MRP1 is already embedded in that. So all of them. All right. In fact, all the inventory planning models use it. All right, and then I'll just give you a glance to the future. So we are planning to, or any company, they're going to go to autonomous planning, right? So just to give you a metaphor, to use a metaphor, so you think about driving, right? So previously, at the very beginning, what we had driving car, right? So I mean, if you look at the bottom picture, so of course in India we are even behind because we have stick shift as well as automatic car, right? But then in level 1 it's already embedded there, right? But you have to hold the steering. In level 2 you have cruise control, right? In certain cars we have cruise control, so you can actually leave the steering, but then you have to be careful. Now level 3 you need to be you can relax more, right? And in level 4 of course you can completely relax, whereas level 5 you can do something else altogether. The system would take care of all those things, so it's completely automated, right? So the one which Tesla was. So right now Micron is in between level 3 and 4. So there are things which we have automated, there are things which we do manually. And it does not mean that manual work would completely be abolished, because there would be human touch required in different places, but then we're getting there, right? So the point here is I mean, when we say automation, what do we mean by that? Automation does not mean that we want to reduce the job or something like that. Automation means if it's a repetitive task, if it does not require human touch, then let it be automated so that the human can actually work on something which cannot be done by a machine. Alright? It does not mean that the person will not have any job. But then the challenge is that you have to upgrade yourself. Right? So that human touch is required. Alright, so quad evaluation. Right? So this term was coined by some Harvard professor, if I'm not wrong. And then as I told you that we do take by textbook, so we do have a lot of interaction with academia. So aligned. So what aligned means is very simple, right? So it actually it was triple evaluation previously, and then accountable has been added later on. So AAA is aligned, agile, and adaptable. So aligned, what does that mean? So it means that you have to be all the partners in your supply chain, they have to be aligned on their objectives. Now when I'm saying partners, that means external partners as well as internal employees as well. You may have two departments, right? And I'll give you an example of non-alignment, right? And this is not specific to Micron, generic example. You know sales team, right? Everyone aware about how sales team works? Now, how do you think that the bonus is given to sales team? Target, so they have a target, they have to set the target, and if you actually exceed the target, then you get bonus for that, right? Now, that means when sales team is doing the forecasting, what would be their propensity?
Yes. Usually low down.
They will reduce the target, right? Correct? Now, let us say there is marketing team. What is his bonus based on? So if the marketing team is saying that we are outreaching and the sales target is low, then there is a misalignment. Correct? Now let us say, now try to understand from a supply chain perspective. When let's say we are deciding to work on our supply chain planning on the basis of what sales target has been given. Now you all only told me, right? The sales target is actually below optimal. Whatever actual number was, they have under forecasted. And now I am making plan on the basis of under forecasted number. So what does that mean? That means I will be losing out sales opportunities a lot, which is not acceptable. Are we clear? So within the company, your alignment, that is also very much required. Alright? And there are different ways of doing that. But then of course, our customers, our suppliers, they have to be aligned as well. So we do not, first thing, we do have raw material suppliers and we also have subcontractors. So everything has to be aligned. We'll be talking about more detail in the production process later. Agility is very important because we are talking about high-tech industry. So you have supply uncertainty, you have demand uncertainty, and if you miss out demand, then you are completely losing out. We lost a lot of opportunities. Micron themselves, they lost a lot of opportunities previously, right? So just because they missed a particular window. Adaptable, that's where your point comes in. The moment you have technology changes, you need to adapt to the market. Otherwise, you will not be able to survive. Look at what Nokia, I mean, of course it's very easy to say in the hindsight, but then it is what it is, right? So you need to be adaptable. And finally, accountable, and that is actually one of the most important things nowadays. There are two types of accountability you have to actually consider here. Number one is towards the planet, right? Everywhere, do you have any supplies? No, you don't have it here. But everywhere you hear about sustainability, right? So whatever you are doing, they have to ensure that they are sustainable. So we have started working towards sustainability. So we already had some things in places, but then this is a more formal way of actually going towards sustainability. And The second one, which is equally important, people miss out on that, the sustainability of the employees in the company. Alright? So let us say I try to get the maximum out of my employee, and to do that I exploit, and that's a very common phenomena. I'm not saying that it does not happen in Micron and it happens in all other companies. I'm just giving you a situation here. So if I start exploiting my employees, then in that case it is not sustainable for that employee to provide good quality work for a long period of time. So that is also very much important. Yeah.
These are concepts like this thing. Now, to implement from the academic point of view, you need to measure.
Yes.
So how do is there any framework to measure the agility, the alignment?
So yeah, of course there are metrics. So I am not saying that you can measure. So again, it's a concept, and then you need to have a scale to measure it. But then if you build a scale, that scale would be specific to a particular company, because your product and my product, the moment I am changing the industry even a small bit, then it would be different, right? However, there are metrics which can be looked at and have a conclusion that whether we are good or not, right? So for example, so we have something called push out rate. Okay, so a customer, when we are actually providing a number, so a customer is placing an order to company. So in that case, we promise a particular date to actually serve that customer. Now, what percentage of the time I'm not being able to actually meet that? So that's a matrix. So I'm giving it very simplistically, but then you have different types of data, and you can actually have a matrix to at least internally understand whether we are becoming better or worse. I'm not talking about comparing Micron with Intel. Within Micron, yesterday how we were and today how we are. So that comparison can be done as long as your matrix is consistent.
So in a given company, it is possible to measure.
Yes, so we have certain metrics, and we do have metrics. So we actually look at that matrix and we evaluate the metrics very regularly and see that, okay, this month we are not being able to do it, so we find out the reason and what. Of course, it's not that it's always not fine and dandy. So we come across situations where we are not being able to do that. So then we find out the reason, and then we try to check whether this can be avoided in the future or not. Any other question? And of course, as Kaushika rightly pointed out, so all of them you need to have a matrix to measure, because it's very good. I can talk about a lot of things, people-centric well-being. Everybody should be happy. Everybody, it would be there should not be any war. Everything would be, the oxygen level should go up. Ozone layer should world peace and anything. So I can talk about a lot of things, but until and unless I actually measure it, it is not going to happen. So we need to have matrix to actually have a measurement of each of the concepts as well. Right. Now I'll gradually get into the process that we actually follow. So we have this advanced planning system, which is a central name of advanced analytics, right? So here, if you actually look at it, and you will actually come across a lot of things which are very familiar to you. So number one is manufacturing build plan, which is essentially connected to MRP, right? Then supplier purchase requests, that's also connected to MRP. And then this is our supply, right? Fab wafer out. So our fabrication centers, they have this wafers which comes out, and on that wafer we do the assembling and moduling, right? And then customer commits are there. So the moment I have a customer, we have a commitment which we need to fill. And all of them, then they are tied together. So if you actually do one good and you do not focus on the others, then again the system would collapse. Right? So now we have different tools. So we have different tools which are used, and these tools are developed by us, right? So that is, when I'm saying tools, I'm not talking about computer or system, it's just kind of a mechanism which actually helps us solve these problems, right? So we have capacity optimization tools, and I'll talk in detail about capacity optimization. What it does is, it's a very simple formulation. So what amount of capacity we need to maintain in order to mitigate the uncertainty that comes through demand, all right? So we have capacity to optimization tools. We have supply chain policies, right? So we have different supply chain policies related to capacity, what capacity to maintain. Supply chain policies related to how much to actually produce in-house, how much to give it to subcontractors. And there is also some challenges with that. Then we have the fab optimization tools, and this is also very important because, as I told you, the fabs actually carry 80% of the cost, right? So we need to ensure that it is optimally run. Because if I am actually having a capacity and I am underutilizing it for fab, that's a no-no. You cannot do it. It's extremely costly. Then we have material optimization. Okay, I have capacity to mitigate uncertainty in demand, but then I should not maintain materials for supporting that demand. Then in that case, that capacity would also be idle, right? So we need to have a material optimization policy which goes hand in hand with this. And then multi-echelon inventory optimization. Why is that needed? The point is, you do not maintain inventory at the same level for every product, right? If you have more allowance, then in that case, probably you would actually maintain inventory at raw material level, because it is easier to maintain, less costlier, and then it is more flexible. So you can, if a particular material goes to different material with different product, then you have the opportunity to actually do that mix and match. But if you have less amount of flexibility, say for example, you have a very important customer who is not willing to give you, let's say your production process takes 6 months to actually produce, right? So, and they are not willing to give you 6 months. Then in that case, for them, you need to maintain inventory at a finished good level or somewhat in work in progress. So at different inventory levels, you need to actually maintain inventory. Okay? So for that, you need to have an optimization process, and that's why multi-echelon inventory optimization comes in. Clear? Any question? Now you can see the spring. Oh, please.
They are all simultaneous or there is any sequence in them?
Technically, if you want to be mathematically correct, they have to be done simultaneously. But as probably you have anticipated, those problems are NP-hard. You cannot solve it. So what we do, we actually approximately solve it. So we do a sequencing of certain processes and solve them sequentially. And the solution to the first sub-problem goes as an input to the second sub-problem. Now, if you ask me, is it suboptimal? Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because I do not want to have absolute optimal solution either way. Because anyway, whatever inputs I am giving, that also is dicey, right? So whatever solution I am getting, as long as so whenever we are providing a solution, we do not provide solution as a point estimate. We give a range estimate. The moment I am giving a range estimate, that takes care of the small irregularity that we are actually giving. And that's an absolutely important thing, by the way. This is something which we have actually worked a detailed analysis on that. So, yeah.
We have a lower bound for
I have come to that screen, that's why screen is for me. Yeah. Any other question? Okay. Yeah, please. No, what I'm saying is that technically, see, it's if your first problem, say let's say I divide the problem into 4 sub-problems, right? Now, your first problem solution, the moment you are changing the first problem, the second problem also changes. But the way we are solving it, probably, I mean, in some cases, I'm taking the output, I'm solving the first problem independently, taking the solution of that, and using that as an input to the second problem. And then I'm solving the second problem. But then, to ensure, when would the problem be absolutely optimal? If you actually solve both the problems simultaneously, right? But the moment I try to do that, it actually loses its meaning, because it take a first thing, sometimes it cannot be solved, because if you get an NP-hard problem, then it will take infinite amount of time to solve. Otherwise, even if it solves, it takes so much time, then it is not usable. I want daily solve. Let's say when we are talking about production process in how many countries, right? So I have to have daily solve for each of those production processes. How many units of this product has to be produced in this particular site on this particular day? I want to have daily solve. Then simultaneous solving is not feasible there. So in that case, what we do, we divide it into smaller sub-problems and use that as a solution. Now, the problem is that the moment I'm changing the second solution, the first solution also changes. I'm not taking account of that. But my argument is the change in first solution is so small that it does not affect much as long as I'm giving a range estimate rather than a point estimate. All right? Okay. So yeah. Any other question? Okay. So you can see the spring, right? So this spring is essentially to actually cushion the what do you call the recommendations. The point here is that when you are actually giving a particular recommendation, let's say as Shanko was telling me that we are responsible for giving the strategic level decisions, right? And one of the strategic level decision is probably, I don't know, 70% in-house production versus 30% out-house production, right? So whatever the demand is, 70% of that would be produced in-house and 30% would be outsourced. With me so far? So I run the refresh this month and I see that okay, 70-30 is the solution. Now in the next month, I see, because the cost values change, and I see, and of course the demand uncertainty also changes, because we are looking at demand uncertainty at every point of time. So because of that, I see the next month my solution is saying that no, 70-30 is not optimal, 65-35 would be better. Next month again I run the refresh, let's say 50-50. Next month 70-30. That is not feasible because somebody has to implement it. So when I am saying that it would be 50-50 or 70-30, when I am actually telling to change that, that means that our procurement person, they have to go to the subcontractor and say that no, boss, I want, let's say 300 units of production this month. Next month they will go and say that okay, 700 units of production. What would the subcontractor do? They will not be able to support it, right? Ideally, all our uncertainties we try to push on subcontractors, but then they will not accept it, right? So that way, we do not want a very knee-jerk reaction, right? So we need to soften the reaction. So that's why we actually maintain a control limit, upper bound and lower bound, on whatever solution or whatever recommendation that we are giving. Are we clear? Any question? And that spring is actually representing that. Yeah. So the hands are actually. Oh, just before going that, so we have in the right hand side we have this graph, right? So we have effort and we have benefit, right? So the amount we defined that there are 4 stages of planning maturity. So we have plan over demand. So any company, any kirana store, they do that, right? So how do you think that the kirana store actually do the planning? So today there is a 10 units demand of a particular stock. Next day you will keep 10 units, right? So they are doing planning for demand, right? The moment you become more efficient or you do a statistics course in a B school, then after that what you will do, so you say that okay, no, we cannot plan over demand, we have to plan over variability. So we plan over sigma, right? So the second step is plan over variability. Third stage is plan over plan stability, because the discussion that we just had, right? So if you actually change your plan every now and then, it is not feasible. So you need to maintain stable. So if you look at the diagram here, so rather than having more abrupt changes, you go for step-by-step changes, and then finally you dampen the bullwhip effect. That's the fourth stage of maturity. And also in terms of analytics, so there are 4 stages which we define. One is descriptive, then predictive, then prescriptive, and cognitive. Now in descriptive, you just look at, okay, what happened? I cannot tell you that, right? So right now what we are doing is we are at prescriptive stage, right? So we are prescribing, so we are looking at the historical data, and depending on the historical data, we are prescribing what should be done. Operations research team, whatever they are doing right now, they are doing at prescriptive stage. Whereas in an ideal world, we like to be in cognitive stage, where we'll just sit and relax and say that, okay, next month we need to produce this and that automatically gets produced, and we'll just drink pina colada or something like that. All right, anyone? Any question? Yeah, please.
So what is the role of AI as of now at Micron?
Okay, there is a lot of work which is going on in AI, but the biggest challenge is, and I'm very sorry to say, is IP. I can give you a little bit of idea about what the AI work is being done, but then, in fact, that is one of the reasons we even generative AI conferences, we cannot go there because of that we do not get permission to speak about it. But then they are doing a lot of work, so in terms of application of AI for search engines as well as database accessing, so they are doing a pretty good bit of work.
As implementation is concerned, and what?
So we have done internal implementation, and for externally there is work going on. And that's it.
Yeah, I can understand.
All right. Okay. Any other question? That is actually, and it's not only Micron. All the companies, they are very mum about AI. I don't know. Of course. So we have these 4 pillars, and then this minimize cost, maximize service, maximize revenue, maximize margin. So there are 4 hierarchical linear programming that we use. Okay. I'll move on to this then. The kind of work that we are doing, I'll focus on that. Right. So one of the problems that we can actually discuss about that which we are doing. So we are talking about capacity optimization. I told about capacity optimization, right? So what we do, we divide it into smaller sub-problems and solve it, right? So what we do for capacity optimization is, the first step, so again, ideally it should be solved in a single shot, but we cannot do it because of complexity issues. So we divide into four smaller subsets. So first step, we identify what is the flex capacity required. Now what do we mean by flex capacity? Very simple. How much extra capacity you need to maintain over and above your demand, which would support the demand in case of any uncertainty. Okay? The second stage is, so our input output of flex capacity is how much extra capacity we should maintain. So that means once we have the flex capacity solution done, so we have the total capacity requirement. Now this total capacity should be divided into internal production and external, right? So in-source and outsource optimization, right? Once we have the in-source and outsource optimization, we do product side qualification. So we have different sites, we have different products, and we qualify in each of the products, which gives us maximum amount of flexibility. And for each of the internal sites, we identify what is the minimum utilization, build versus what was that? Buy. No, not build versus buy. This one is chase versus this thing. Level. All right, so I'll go to individual level. So So what we have is, if we have low flex capacity, so in that case our capacity cost would be lower because we are having lower capacity. But then your opportunity lost would be higher because in case our demand goes up, then you would be losing out a lot of demand. Whereas if you maintain high flex capacity, of course you can support the demand, but then your cost of capacity would be high. So you need to maintain a balance between that. That's a trade-off which we are looking at. And then if you look at the formulation, it's very simple. That's C versus Z multiplied by sigma when we are actually looking at the numbers, right? So it's simple, your Harris formulation, right? 1917 wala formula, right? So the buffer is Z multiplied by sigma. So when I say sigma, what does it mean? Sigma means, try to understand, when we are talking about capacity, so I am making a call standing today about future, right? How much capacity I need to maintain? Today is March, right? So in the month of April, because if I say, or not in the month of April, probably in the month of August, right? Because if I say that tomorrow you need more capacity, the team which is responsible for capacity, they cannot buy capacity just like that. When I'm saying capacity, what does it actually represent? It is talking about machineries, heavy machineries, and it's not lying around that you go to IKEA and buy it, right? So they need to build that machinery, and it takes a pretty long time, 3 to 4 months to actually get that machinery, right? So that means what you need to do is to actually predict the future. So and depending on how your future is, you need to take a call on over and above what the future demand is, how much demand or how much extra capacity you need to maintain. So that means when you are talking about sigma, that sigma is representing not your demand variability, but your accuracy of your forecast. So that means we look at historical data and see how our M-3 forecasts were historically. Using that, given that 3 months down the line forecast is X, what would be our probability distribution function for our actual demand? And depending on that, then we go back to our simple normal distribution problem and say that, okay, this amount of extra capacity we need to maintain. Are we clear on this? So that's the flex capacity. Now there is a little bit more complications there. It's not just simply Z multiplied by sigma. So we have some other scenario analysis done. So we have something called all demand. We have something called die use up. So excess die which we are keeping, we need to have extra capacity to support that die as well. So comparing those, we come up with the final number. However, the moral of the story is that the main formulation remains the same, that simple Harris formula. But the problem is, in Harris formula, which number you should input, so you need to be careful about that.
One thing.
Yeah, please.
From your experience, this actual demand, does it really follow normal?
No, it doesn't. But then, it really, so it really doesn't. But then, when you look at this, so if you are looking at individual product and then trying to model the demand distribution of that particular product, it does not follow. But when I am saying capacity group, so we do not compute the demand, the actual versus forecasted demand and the corresponding demand at an individual material level. But then what we do, we club many of the material or many of the products or capacities in a group and then compute the actual. And then that's why your CLD comes in and kicks in and ensures that the resultant aggregated distribution actually follows more or less normal distribution. But if we look at individual, it doesn't. Yeah. So the demand is, let's say, 30,000 units, right? And I am saying that it would be following a normal distribution with mean, let's say, 40,000 and standard deviation, let's say 300. When you say it is discrete, it means that it cannot take a value of 20,000.4572.
There may be high variability in that demand. If it is discrete,
again, when you are looking at discrete, but at individual level, there would be high variability. The moment you aggregate a lot of things, you will see that that square root law of inventory comes in, takes in. So it would actually reduce the demand significantly, and you will see that a nice normal distribution looking demand coming. It actually is, it's not exactly normal, but then it can safely approximate it. Okay, any other question?
Dr. Shantanu, I have a follow-up question to that. Okay, I'm a public health professional, and we all saw that during COVID, the scenarios were all haywire. So, when you say that there are multiple scenarios, you just mentioned that obviously it's not going to be like that. How do you translate this into a real-world problem like a public health emergency, the PHEs, which Bill Gates has predicted in the future? How would you translate your product to that, or have you thought of that? Like,
See, honestly speaking,
we can take it over lunch also if it's
okay, we'll take it over lunch.
in the interest of time.
We'll take it over lunch. Right? We'll take it over lunch. Any other question? All right. Okay. So once we have that, then the next stage of problem is that we need to find out what would be the optimal in-source outsource split, right? So in that case, our production, if we have a high captive percentage, means high in-source percentage, then our production cost would be lower, because if I am building that particular capacity in-house, of course we believe it to be a low-cost exercise. It does not happen always, but most of the time it happens. All right. So, however, if we have a huge amount of in-source capacity, but then we do not face demand, then in that case there is a chance of underutilization, which would be higher. So, expected cost of underutilization would be higher. Other way around, high subcon percentage, your underutilization cost would be lower, but then correspondingly your production cost would be higher, because you would be paying a premium to your subcontractors. So again, you need to maintain an optimal captive non-captive ratio. So what we do is we do simulate the scenarios for all possible captive ratios. So in your x-axis, we have captive capacity as a percentage of total capacity, and we calculate the overall expected cost per unit, and we simulate all possible scenarios and find out where we actually have the optimal point. But then, of course, we do not give the point as a solution for this particular product group. I'll say that the range that we should maintain is somewhat between -2% or -5% plus 10%. So that is what we are doing for in-source outsource. And then we talked about minimum utilization. So again, the same similar exercise. So given that now that we already have our minimum or in-house capacity already defined, so we already had our total capacity defined. Now we have defined that, okay, this is my internal capacity and this is my external capacity. Now given that internal capacity is defined, then we actually do mean utilization exercise, where we take all possible mean utilization for in-house capacity, and then we trade off between inventory holding cost. If we have high mean utilization, then there is a chance of holding inventory, and we calculate. And let me tell you, the bigger challenge is actually finding out what is the actual inventory cost. But then, of course, we do that, and if our higher mean utilization, then you will have higher inventory cost, but then you will have lower. If you do not have mean utilization, then your inventory cost will be lower, but then your underutilization would be higher, because you are not having any. Just let me give it in this way. So let's say you decide that I decide 85% as my mean utilization, right? So that means no matter what, even if the demand is not there, you will continue to produce 85%. So the maximum underutilization that you are actually allowing to happen is 15%. So if you have a lower mean utilization, the maximum underutilization you are allowing would be much higher. So in that case, the probability of underutilization is much higher. Okay, and then we do the same way, all possible numbers of mean utilization, and find out where the minimum cost lies. And then we have the time the rope model, which is essentially site qualification problem. So in fact, this would be easier, or I'll start with this. So there are we have a number of product offerings, and we have a number of sites, right? Now, if you look at the first scenario where we have each site dedicated to single product, then in that case, these product demands are volatile, right? So there is a chance that the actual demand of A is lower than what we anticipated, right? So then in that case, even if I have excess capacity remaining in site 1, we would not be able to support any other upsurge in demand of any other product because it is not being able to support that. Clear? So that's why it's low flexibility. Whereas in the second case, where we are actually qualifying all the products to all the sites, then in that case, we would be able to support any upsurge and downsurge of demand across the product line. However, when I'm saying that one particular site would be qualified for a particular product, so that actually is not very simple saying that, okay, let this product be produced there. It is talking about technology enablement. It is talking about people capability enablement. So it's a costly affair. So that means we need to have a balance between these two where we get the maximum amount of flexibility, but by having lowest number of links. Alright? So what we do, we use linear programming, combination of linear programming and greedy algorithm. We actually come up with something similar. Of course, this is not ideal. It can be made even smaller, but then there are some external requirements which also we need to respect. So for example, our model may say that, let's say, X product should be produced in Y site, but then our geographical scenario says that no, it is not feasible. So that we need to respect as well. So once we do that, we have something similar to what you see on the left-hand side. So we have a number of products, 5 products are there, just modeled it, and then 8 sites are there. Some of them are internal sites, orange are external sites, subcontractors, and green are the internal sites, and this is the final solution that we get. Now, how we do it? Very simple. So what we do is we start with the green field, right? All right, and or start with the initial solution, one product in each of the sites. So we talk to the BU, business unit, and say that which is the most important site for that particular product. So we qualify that. And then with the BU we check which are the feasible paths which are possible. Like which takes into consideration the geographical scenario, the strategic scenario, and so on and so forth. Now once we have that, then what we do, so we have the tick box which are already there. We have the open boxes which we can populate if we want. Then what we do, we try to so we compute, so for the given tick marks, what is the service level we are getting, right? And if we have all the tick boxes which are possible and check it, and then we run the model and check what is the maximum amount of service level that can be achieved. So those two numbers are there. So current service level and maximum service level. Then what we do, we start with the initial solution, we add one check mark, right? And check whether or how much my service level has increased. Now that can be done for all possible additional check marks, right? So whichever is giving me the best possible increase, we accept that, and that's the next stage of solution. That's the greedy algorithm. So in the next stage, again, the new check mark which got added becomes your initial solution. You add one more check mark, find out which gives you the maximum increase, and what you will see that the solution actually becomes like this. So this is the maximum that can be achieved. So this is maximum service level, and let's say this initial solution service level is this, and you get something like this. So although your full qual requires, let's say, 40 qualifications, you can achieve the same amount of service level within, let's say, 10 qualifications. So that gives us the final solution. Clear? So this is what our time the rope model is. How much time do we have? We're done? Alright. Okay, any questions?
So, this capacity
So we have the capacity and we are trying to do this. We follow level and chase capacity depending on the scenario, right? So if
particular industry is
no, why not? Yes. In fact, that is what is actually applied everywhere, right? You maintain a minimum. Yes, you maintain a minimum level. So when I'm saying that if you look at this one, right? If you look at this one, minimum utilization, what does it mean? It means that you will actually maintain 85%. So let's say this the number corresponds to 85%, right? So you maintain 85% of no, this is not level. This is combination of level and chase. Because let's say your demand is 100 units, right? And your actual demand comes out to be or forecasted demand is 100 units, and you decide that 85 you will produce no matter what, right? So if the demand comes to be 70 units, then what would you do? You will produce 85 and carry that 15 units of inventory to the next year. Whereas if the actual demand is 90, then what would you do? It's not always, it is not necessary that you always have the inventory. Let's say for the first period, when you are applying it, you decide 85% is your minimum utilization. What does it mean? Actual demand comes to be 70, then what would you do? You will produce 85. Actual demand comes to be 90, you do not have any inventory on hand, then what would you do? You will, why would you search for? You have the capacity of 100. The minimum utilization is 85. What would you do? Come on, you are missing the point here. What I am saying is, your capacity, just listen to me carefully. Your capacity is 100. You have the capacity of 100. You have the capacity of 100. Right? Forget about subcontractors. You have the capacity of 100. You decide that minimum utilization will be 85 units. The actual demand comes out to be 90. What would you do? You will manufacture it. So you are chasing. So even if the demand is below 100, then also you can go for subcontractor. My point here is that this is a combination. Again, you are going haywire. My point is we are talking about whether it is feasible to have a combination of. Let's say your minimum utilization, you decide, right? So let's say your actual capacity is 100. So anything below 50, you maintain level, right? Anything above 50, you are doing chase. So that's what I am trying to say. That's what. And in fact, all the companies they follow a combination of chase and level. So the argument that chase and level cannot be applied simultaneously, that is not valid. Got it? And then if it is beyond this, in fact, even if it is 90, then also will not produce completely in-house, because we have certain obligations to our subcontractors as well. It's not that I can say that okay, I can call a subcontractor say that I need a capacity of 40 units and then I do not use it, right? I have those obligations as well. So those are taken into consideration. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.